At the risk of immodesty, yet another major public policy issue that I have opined on has proven me correct. Which brings us to today's view: electric vehicles. What a steaming pile of garbage in a dumpster fire. To refresh your recollection, I had opined years ago on the hypocrisy of the climate radicals, as well as the continued progressive Democratic onslaught of social engineering disguised as policy, like ramming electric vehicles down everybody's throat. I said then that this was a disaster. I reminded people, especially morally superior progressive elites, that instead of worrying about climate change on a planet that was 4.5 billion years old, on which climate change is baked in due to dozens of factors. Remember the Ice Age, for example? They should be more concerned about the hundreds of billions of tons of the Earth's crust that was being destroyed in mining operations for minerals for the electric batteries. A lot of people also have blood on their hands for all the children in the Congo killed in mining operations for cobalt, a key ingredient in the electric vehicle. Then there was the ultimate irony, that the electric batteries could not generate electric power on their own and were being charged at charging stations that were energized by coal-fired generators or diesel fuel, two of the worst targets of the climate radicals. But that was several years ago, before we had the benefit of hindsight. So now let's take a look back at what the progressive stupidity and ignorance have wrought. First of all, I don't know if you've noticed over the last year and a half how many electric car commercials there are. It has to be in the thousands. In every sporting event and every primetime show or movie on television or streaming on your smartphone, it seemed that all the automakers in the world had stopped manufacturing internal combustion engines. You could reasonably conclude that all they sold were electric vehicles. I hope you realize that we paid as taxpayers for this onslaught. You remember the $1 trillion infrastructure bill touted by the Biden administration, but was really a thinly disguised Green New Deal? Well, I'm here to report how all that worked out. Less than 7% of new car purchases in 2023 were for electric vehicles. In 2022, it was much less than that. No one is buying them. I have seen videos of parking lots in America of all the major manufacturers, Ford, General Motors, Toyota, and Dodge, to name a few, that have parking lots full of unsold EVs, enough to fill a small state like Delaware. Thankfully, the American people are much smarter than the progressive elites that have hijacked the National Democratic Party. Some of the biggest U.S. car manufacturers are wearing a barrel naked. Losses north of $5 billion each last year alone. Auto executives at General Motors and others are now running from EVs, including Toyota, the biggest car manufacturer in the world. In fact, the average money lost per vehicle is estimated at $36,000 per vehicle, according to industry reports. The electric vehicle makes the Edsel, which had been the worst car rollout in American history in the 1950s, look like the best thing since the Ford Model T got people off horseback. Now let's take a look at some of the reasons for the cratering, besides all the reasons I predicted several years ago. It started with stories of harrowing tales, including a Wall Street Journal front page story of a long-distance trip that should have taken hours, instead took days, due to the limited range, the inability to find charging stations, and when found, they either didn't work or took 6 hours to charge, resulting in overnight motel stays. Then there was the fact, according to industry reports, that electric vehicles were 80% more likely to have electric malfunctions affecting the car's computer functions, and they were shutting down on the road. Then there's the inconvenient fact they don't tell you about, that 3/4 of American geography are considered cold weather zones. Unfortunately, electric vehicles don't perform in cold weather, which inhibits the chemical reactions necessary for the battery to generate power. Unlike gas-powered cars, the electric battery is responsible for producing all the power the car needs. Thus, not only does cold weather reduce electric vehicles' already limited range by up to 40%, the battery is also responsible for heating the car itself, which reduces range even further. Also, the already endless wait times for charging in normal weather can take an additional 2 to 3 times longer because the cold also slows down ion cells' ability to receive charge. Finally, there have been examples of electric vehicle batteries catching fire and blowing up, killing the occupants. I will now end with an editorial quote from the Washington Examiner and Zachary Faria. Begin quote, "The Biden administration is throwing billions of tax dollars at consumers. That is bad enough. But Biden's policies are even more diabolical. His Environmental Protection Agency has issued regulations mandating that 2/3 of all cars sold by 2032 be electric. If drivers want to buy electric cars, they should be allowed to do so. But forcing everyone to adopt an unreliable technology is self-defeating and cruel. It is almost as though someone wants the public to suffer and the nation to fail. It is an outrageous thing to think about. Your electric car is being powered by evil, dirty diesel. What's next? Are electric car batteries produced through a process that pollutes air and water and further destroys the environment? Question. Oh, they are. Well, how about that? And so goes the never-ending hypocrisy of climate change doomers and their, quote, solutions. Big, bad, dirty energy must come to the rescue to keep your climate-saving electric vehicle rolling. That is how the climate change charade goes. Your electric car can't function without electricity being provided by dirty energy sources or batteries provided by lithium mining. And the climate change cult can't keep operating without hiding just how much of their, quote, clean energy plans rely on, quote, dirty energy they want to destroy, end quote. How long will you let progressive elites try to regulate your lives? They come as wolves dressed in sheep's clothing, or in America's case, as the National Democratic Party. Whether on faulty science, canceling Dr. Seuss, mask and vaccine mandates, school closings, gender ideology, the border invasion, or defund the police, the progressive Democratic elites have been wrong and are destroying our country in their quest for utopia. I know we live in secular times, and I don't often draw on my Jesuit backgrounded Christianity, but a proverb that traces its origin to Ecclesiastes 21:10 seems appropriate to the path we're on, along most fronts of the cultural wars. And the quote is, "The road to hell is paved with good intentions."